it starts with a story. I walked on into basically, everybody in Silicon Valley now wears, heads-up displays and it's vaguely the Borg. Their hands are Wi-Fi'd and just wander around the room, and their brains are in vats in the back. And I wandered with these, which are approximately 220 index cards. And got a cheap laugh. The reason I did this is actually the inspiration for Life Hacks. Is that about a year and a half ago, I went to Xerox PARC, which is a series of free talks, free coffee, cheap food. It's a nice place to keep warm in Silicon Valley. And they had Kent Beck, who some of you may know as the founder of Extreme Programming. And Kent Beck has a very improvisational approach to talking, which I admire. And I caught him at Xerox PARC, basically explaining his approach, how the nugget of extreme programming. And the nugget of extreme programming, according to Kent Beck, is index cards. And Kent Beck had a big pile of index cards, and he was just sort of describing what the process was, and just kind of casually throwing these index cards like shuriken into the Xerox PARC audience. Now, to give you an idea of the Xerox PARC audience, imagine like 20 Jacob Nielsen's. It's like Statler and Waldorf of user interface. They all sit there grumbling. The classic quote that I have at Xerox PARC is a man standing up saying, "I hate drop-down menus, and I wish I'd never invented them." And so this is an audience that gets pissed off easily, right? And Kent Beck was sitting there just throwing index cards, going, "You don't need computers, index cards are the way to go. Stories, pair programming, way." And I thought this was brilliant, because here was somebody in the center of the people that claimed that they were bringing the organized, paperless office to the world, just going, "Look on your works, ye mighty and despair. Paper is the way forward." And I also admired him because Kent Beck said straight out, "Look, I'm an average programmer. I'm a very average sort of person. But I've got good habits. I've got really good habits, which comes from hanging out with very good programmers like Ward Cunningham. And I've watched them, and I've dapped them, and those habits are the things that make me the $1 million consultant that he is today." And I thought, well, there's a clue, there's a chance, because I was going through a lot of problems at the moment. I was the world's most disorganized person, and so I went, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to imitate Kent Beck. I'm going to adopt the manners, the hacks of organized, prolific geeks, and see if just by using their habits, you can build yourself up into a sort of Charles Atlas of organization. No, it didn't work. No, very well spotted. It didn't work, but I still think that there's some use in it. So here's what I did in the next 6 months. I emailed or contacted in other ways 70 technologists. I gave 27 of them replied and said, "Hello, what do you want?" I asked those people 100 questions in questionnaires, and I got 14 replies back, which is actually a fairly good response rate. What?
I didn't say.
Good. I got a bunch of really useful and interesting results back. And so basically, this talk is my summary of what those people said. Now, just to run you through who these people are, and cheer and boo as you see the favourites go past. James Winsky, ex-Mozilla hacker. These days he sells beer, but that's the aim of everyone who wants to be organised, right? Is that James Winsky? One of the things I asked was, "What's your schedule?" James Winsky's schedule is like get up at 2, read LiveJournal, hang out with goth chicks the rest of the night. And if that's not a name for us all, I don't know what is. Nathan Torkington, Pearl hacker, wrote quite a lot of books. Dirtiest Mind in the O'Reilly Corporation. Brad Templeton, chairman of the EFF. He's the man you can thank for not having to say or listen to http://bbc.bbc.co.uk. Guido van Rossum. No, some loser. No, he invented Python. That's really good. Eric S. Raymond, gun-toting, nice man. Only ever got into a fight with him once, very scary. Had to use my young daughter as a defense. Anne Mitchell, anti-spam lawyer, who I was actually writing an article about at the time. Very particular kind of person, which you probably see quite a lot, which is a CEO who has like all the gadgets and things like that. A very techie, geeky CEO, which I think actually there should be more of, but there isn't. Morbus If, not his real name, who does Amphetadesk, a man who actually prefers dial-up to broadband and does a lot of the hacks books for O'Reilly. Paul Ford, if you don't know his site, do go and see it. He writes the way that you know I dream of writing. He's one of those people that I got in because I didn't want to get people who were particularly prolific just because they did one thing and never left their mother's basement in Cheltenham. So Paul Ford is someone who's a bit of a generalist, very good writer, big semantic web RDF guy. Dan Egner, not a name that's widely known, but he did sweetcode.org, which is a fantastic list of really good programming things, and he also did the location stuff, which is slightly less well known here because it doesn't actually work in the UK. But you sit there and do 90110 and are impressed by how many pizza huts there are in Beverly Hills. Ed Dunhill, Ed at Uselink. Ed, are you here? No, okay, he's busy. He's a Brit who does a lot of stuff with XML and Debian, big Debian hacker. I wanted to keep a track on the Debian people because they are incredibly sort of self-disciplined. Cory Doctorow? No, don't know. I thought blogger. Say no more. Simon Cousins. Simon, you here? Simon, big inspiration for all of this. Yet another Brit Perl hacker, doing a lot of interesting stuff and cooperated a great deal with me in coming up with this stuff. Tim Bray, now working for Sun. Again, somebody who I wanted to get out of the general crowd rather than this sort of hackish, oh, I code something up in assembler every day. He's someone who thinks the big thoughts about the W3C. And Piers Beckley, who was in my list for people who write scripts. I was actually trying to get hold of Piers Corley. I missed this up. Who's another Perl 6 hacker. And I got Piers, who's actually an LA scriptwriter. But he did reply to the questionnaire, which I thought was nice. We'll call him the Control. So, what do we find here? Well, the thing that everybody wanted to see, and I'm going to have to futz around a bit to show you, is screenshots. Everybody in the world loves screenshots.
Did you ask any women?
I did. They have better things to do, I think. There's a lot of self-selecting going on here, which and Anne Mitchell is actually a woman. It's the internet, but she is. Okay. And I did ask more women than that, but it's the standard problem, as you can see in a room full of pale young gentlemen. Okay. How are we going to do this? So the results of the screenshots were actually rather dull. I'll just go through these one by one. Anyone who wants to heckle good ways of loading these up simultaneously. This is one of them, and as you can see, a lot of shells here. We've got shells. Those Brad Templeton's. Can you do that?
Let's have a slideshow mode as well.
Oh, cool. Let's expose that. More time is wasted just doing that in front of your screen like a monkey. Okay, this is Eric Raymond's. Everyone's very excited to see Eric Raymond's because, there's a good chance he's...
Danny, it does have a slideshow mode.
Says the man, patronisingly. Yeah, okay.
It's very unpatronising.
Oh, well, okay. Says the man helpfully. All right. Oh, good God. Oh, shame.
The other key, press the other key.
Press return, hit enter. It's the one on the right. Okay, I'm going to click all of these now. What's going to happen?
No, control-click and select open with preview.
Control-click, okay.
Open with.
Very good. Ooh, okay, zoom in. Let's see if this works. Okay, this is the first one. The spread temperature shells. Hey, Raymond.
If you close the toolbar.
Oh, don't add it. To running Linux, this wouldn't have happened. Craig and Sittiga, actually Craig and I didn't mention that on this, but a big shell. Here's two screens here, trying to be clever, both of which have, it's Paul Ford's shell. Jamie Zawinski's home thing here, nice and long here. You can't pick out all the details here, but they're mostly shells. So if we zoom in on this, this is the funny bit. This is great. It's amazing what you can see when you get people's screenshots. There's a letter to Jamie Zawinski. Oh, I'm sad to hear that you will not make the X-Nature screensaver for the Windows OS. Is it because you don't know how to, or you're just one of those people that think Linux is accurately a good OS? That's what Jamie Zawinski has to do all the time. That is the curse of having a news group named after you. Here's another one, some email there, and you can just pick out a shell. I'm seeing a pattern here. Emacs, little shell. Okay, this one's good. This one actually crashes Mozilla. This is Dan Egner who wins the Geek Prize. We're gonna have to really. Okay, so let's this little guided tour of Dan Egner, Google employee. And you can tell it's Google, right, because of the openness policy here. Do no evil, or don't be caught doing it, anyway. So here we go, shell, two shells, Shelly, I assume it's a shell, otherwise it's just a naked woman. Shell, okay, cool. A web browser. Everyone has a web browser when they're not using their shell or their other shells down here. So, as I say, a certain pattern emerging here. Piers uses Outlook. Blessing. Okay. All right. Now I want people to heckle because I don't know PowerPoint. How do I get back into this without having to page through everything again? Can I just do that? Okay, so that's not working. No, you said you think you're so clever. Alright, oh yeah, distributed intelligence. Alright, so here's the conclusion they came to. People use shells. And why? Well, okay, obviously I'm self-selecting here. There's not necessarily a question of efficiency. You know, people do get through. Who uses shells here? Who uses the command line? Okay, slight change of plan. The rest of the talk will be about Emacs macros. So I'm defending somewhat to the converted here. But you know, there are people out there who don't use shells who seem to get things done in life, correct? There's a selection process. The people who reply to me are the people who read NTK. There's a weird thing going down that the people who can read Courier with no line breaks also use command lines. There's something more important here as well, though. That a lot of I deliberately picked people who I knew were prolific, and because I don't get out much, those are people who are on the internet, right? Those are the people who are doing a lot of very public stuff on the net. And if you're doing that, if I went through those slides, what you would see is that most of those shells are actually to remote computers. And the command line is something that you generally use if you've got your own desktop machine here, and you've got another computer somewhere on the wider net which is holding a lot of important things for you, things that you know. So you're tailing logs, or you're copying files for public consumption. So a closer examination showed that was certainly one of the important aspects to this. On the other hand, you know, this is clearly not hampering these people's efficiencies. The idea that the command lines are in some way something which slows people down is also not true. These people haven't moved away from using the command line, despite having spent years of using UI systems. There's nobody there who just has a console. So when I did the emerging tech thing, this threw me into a bit of a crisis because I wanted to try and appeal to two different groups of people. I wanted to explain to people who do use command lines how they could improve how they did things. And I also wanted to justify NetWizard's ways to man. I wanted to explain what it was that these people were doing, and how it was interesting and important to people who weren't just big nerdy geek faces. And this is the way, and I'll do this for the rest of the talk where I'll actually have some nuggets of real information. What I'm going to try and do here is describe how, and I suspect there are a lot of alpha-geeks here, the sort of habits and things that they've had, because there's a huge commonality amongst all of these people, and after I'd spoken to them, I said to other people, and people sort of shamefacedly said, well, no, that's exactly what I do. So there's a huge commonality amongst prolific geeks and people who aspire to be those kind of people. And I wanted to draw some lessons that might be generally applicable to people who don't want to be Eric Raymond. So, this is the primary organizing app. Almost all of the people I talked to just used to-do.txt, just used your text file. Paul Ford's one was like 27,000 lines long. Lots of people said, I'm actually writing this in my text file. I have everything that I have in this, and it includes my reply to yours. A lot of those screens you saw, the to-do.txt file in Emacs or whatever, is there permanently on the screen. They don't use particularly complicated or homegrown organizing apps for their day-to-day life. And they use it by Word, BBEdit, Emacs, Notepad. And this was just universal law. Even Piers said that he had this. What about, did I not put via there? That's me trying to, not put in my own biases, being a good analyzer. Why? Okay, and this is me somewhat theorizing, but it seems to fit in with the facts. There's a rule, I've read so many self-help books in the last year, and none of them have helped, but they've been interesting. One of the things that crops up a lot is that if you're trying to organize yourself, the most important thing you have to do is take stuff that you're going to normally forget and dump it very quickly. No organizing system works if it takes you more than n minutes to do it, and the n varies from self-help book to self-help book, but it's usually 1 to 3 minutes. If you've got something and it's in your head, your short-term memory, you have to put it somewhere. Otherwise, you're going to forget it if you're faced with thousands of emails or dealing with lots of projects, as these people do. So one of the reasons is you want to be able to find and enter text fast, and text processors give you that. You can cut and paste very quickly, and you can also find stuff in it. It's very easy to, you could throw away the metadata. I have, let's see if I've got that quote. I have a very good quote from someone who said that, and it was one of the XML guys. He said, I'm not interested in tagging lots of metadata to my behavior. I just want to be able to find these things, and as Google shows, as anyone who's searched for text shows, text still wins on that. And they're willing to almost sacrifice anything. I mean, the idea of doing this sort of thing in Notepad and Word is kind of weird. But if it's fast and it's available all the time, they'll do anything for it. What are the applications? What are the wider applications of this? Well, one of the features that the word processors, the text processors that people use, have something like incremental search in them. Incremental search is something that provides exactly this. And if you've ever used it in Mozilla, you just press / or you just start typing on Mozilla, you'll realize how this speeds it up. Who doesn't know what incremental search is? There's no shame involved. Okay, incremental search, really easy. Basically, imagine if you had Google, and as soon as you started typing a letter, it began searching. So you were searching for Apple. You typed A, it would start listing everything with A. And then you type P, and it would start locking down to things like this. And if you imagine doing this with a text file, it quickly lets you lock in to what you're doing. There's actually a Mac OS X program now that does this with Google, and I can't remember what it is. You can come after me afterwards, and it's kind of fascinating to watch something work faster than you're used to Google working. Google must hate it, because it must do a lot of loads. But you see this is something that's very, very prevalent in geeky text processors. It's in Vi, it's in Emacs, and increasingly it's spreading into other things. And you see this re-emergence of the command line in professional desktops now. So you have this in Mozilla, you have it in Panther now, whereas if you search for files, it does this. And also, talking about OS X, I'm sure this is going to leak into GNOME and Windows. These launching facilities where you press outspace, and you can do this with everything. You can do this drilling down to your applications. You want Firefox, you type Fi, and you're there. So we see this stuff bleeding over into other technology. This is another reason why people use notepads. They trust them. Power users trust software as far as they have thrown their computers in the past. If you're used to using a very complicated app and it crashes on you, you slowly ramp down your belief in systems. And power users know that the bigger an app, the flakier it is. They've also gone through a lot of upgrades, which has a sort of whittling process. There are very few apps which work on a lot of platforms. And these people will shuffle from Windows to Unix to Mac and back again. And they want to have their to-do lists on all of them. Okay, what's another popular organizing tool? This is from Corey, and maybe I should get him up and say it in his words. But okay, I keep all my documents in my mail archives, filling my mail in a couple of dozen mailboxes. Mail gives me version control, since I'll attach and send out drafts with annotation about the changes in each draft, in threads. Access control, only people on the CC or 2 list will be able to read. Archiving, metadata, searchability, tight integration with most other apps. So it's killer, Corey.
It's killer.
Right, that's the little trademark little thing. That's when they start advertising Vi on the telly. That's what they'll do. Or actually, Mail.app, this would be. This is interesting. People do this. People do this a lot. A lot of people had to-do lists in their text file, and for like major document handling, they use one other big app. One other big app that notoriously was not designed to do this. This is the famous Lewinsky quote. Every program attempts to expand until it can read mail. These programs which cannot do so, expand, are replaced by ones which can.
For some reason this doesn't apply to Outlook.
To Outlook. Outlook just expands on its own. This is my corollary. Every program that can read mail ends up being used for everything else. And why is this? I do this myself. My to-do list is embedded in my mail app. You'll find people doing all kinds of weird status stuff with their apps. This is the reason why. If you live your life in mail, and these people were, because I was particularly picking people who clearly dealt with a lot of emails. Most of them said, yes, I get, 100. My inbox has 29,000 or whatever emails in it. A lot of people have a lot of emails and use their inbox as a basic clearing ground for to-do lists. Ed Dunhill, for instance, who isn't here but was one of the questionnaires, just announced that he knew that he had nothing else on his to-do list because his inbox was clear. And we see this more generally. Joel Spolsky and a lot of other people use Excel for everything. Databases, anything. They lock on one app and then they use that exclusively. Joel Spolsky, of course, who writes Java software, has the excuse that he wrote Excel, but a lot of other people do. People who should know better. So your client, if you're a web designer, sends you a website design in PowerPoint, which is always slightly frustrating, but it's an understandable thing. Don Lancaster, a really great old school hardware hacker, sees the world in PostScript because he imprinted like a chick on that particular app. So now when he needs to write, a word processor, he writes it in PostScript, sends it to his printer, and then communicates it to it via the serial port. So why is this? This is because people, particularly power people, really just want to concentrate on one particular thing. And these things are Zawinski complete. They're not Turing complete, but you can suck most things into them. They have the features that you need, and you're willing to sacrifice, again, perhaps the usefulness of moving to another big app that you learn for the fact that you don't have to go up that learning curve again, and you can whittle things into things that you use every day. So what are the applications here? I think this is actually out of date since I did this in February. The thing I was predicting at this stage was the private blog, which is that people now spend a lot of time in their blogging software. And so what we could imagine seeing is, rather than people moving to web applications and terribly complicated project management systems, they'll just use their blog for things. And I did a sort of straw poll of people, and this is the case. People use their blogs. People use closed blogs, i.e. blogs that don't perform the role that blogs are supposed to do, which is to talk about your cat and lots in front of people, to privately talk to themselves and document what they're doing on projects. And a lot of people, said this in form of a confessional. Yes, that's exactly what I do. I just am used to the blogging software, and it's a good thing to do. This is the thing that has developed now into this whole idea of blogs, this sort of project blogging world. And of course, amusingly, what's happening is people are exploiting this and going, this is what people do. We'll design a huge app. that features this and like kind of looks like a blog a bit, but has all these extra features. And my prediction is that you see these things and they're not going to run. You know, it's just not going to happen that people will enter, you know, pull down menu to click on the calendar and then the status of this is urgent. People don't want to enter that kind of metadata in, and they're perfectly happy searching through a completely plain text file. The other thing I did while I was doing this is I got LiveJournal to publish stats on how many private entries there were. And if you go, LiveJournal now has this feature where you could see the last bazillion wines in the last few minutes. And they also have statistics on how many of those entries are private. And it's about 4%. About 4% of the hundreds of posts to LiveJournal are things, people just talking to themselves. The next crawler is a private RSS feed, because the other piece of software that people are increasingly using is RSS readers. And you see RSS readers being bent in the same way as email clients were into doing things that perhaps they weren't really designed to do. A classic example here being email, right? Dodgit.com and other systems are being used so that people get email sent to something which converts it into an RSS feed so that they can now read announce-like email on the RSS reader that they're using. So they're kind of sucking data in to another application which they have grudgingly accepted into their lives and are now using it for that. I have a sysadmin friend who now has all his status reports run through private RSS feeds. Okay, this is the second half of the talk. How am I doing for time? Oh, okay, we're doing right. The other genesis of this project, which is still ongoing, is secret software. I have a slight obsession with public, private, and secret, as some of you might know. And I was fascinated by the fact that while there's a lot of publicly open software, it was clear to me that a lot of the people who do very open stuff also have this cache of software they use on a day-to-day basis that no one ever sees. And you know, there are lots of reasons why people don't see this software. The people using it believe it's no use to anyone else, and it's often not. It's just quickly written. Embarrassingly coded, shockingly coded. Guido van Rossum refused to give me any of his scripts because he went, well, you know, they're just the same as anybody else's Python scripts, you know, just a bit shoddy and, you know, I'm just throwing together. But, you know, they work, and that's all you want. People often forget that when I was asking people to list the scripts that they had, you could see, basically what I suggested is I said, just give me a list of your tilde bin or, you know, your executable directory, place where you put programs that you've written yourself to help you through the day. And they'd start listing it, and they would get about halfway, and then they go, I have no idea what this does. I don't know what this script does. I think I'm scared to use it. I'm sorry, it's secret. So they have a life cycle as well. You write these things, you throw them away. Simon Cousins, who's here, was very good, and after I talked to him a bit about this, he actually published all of his secret software, or most, and the ones that knew what I did. And they were a very good cross-section. If you have a browser up, this is a very good URL to go to give the idea of the sort of things you see these very prolific geeks who can write just bespoke things off the top of their head, the sort of things that they do write. And I think it's revealing. You know, obviously these things are no use to anyone apart from me, because I can pull these things together, and you begin to see patterns of applications that are clearly useful, clearly things that people use to organize, and also, you know, potentially lucrative. And the other thing about Simon is that I know that one of these apps became like your full-time job, because you write a program like this, and if you're smart, you sit there and go, well, perhaps everyone else will want this. So here are the trends of things that people have in tilde bin, things that everyone uses. Everyone has a random sig generator. And this is a little-known fact that one of Linus Torvalds' first posts to Usenet is him trying to get his random sig generator to work. And he doesn't understand pipes. And he's going, it doesn't work. Can anyone help me? SCO? Is anyone here from SCO? Can you help me? Netscape killers. Applications, this is the secret software that people who don't write software don't know about. You know, when something hangs, and And like your friend who's very geeky sits there going, oh, this never happens with me. It does. They just have a script that kills Netscape or kills whatever it is that's being the CPU hog. My girlfriend has a thing called the Pine Killer, which she experimented and set it up as CGI script for it, so other people could kill her Pine section while she was strange woman. SSH foo, another big secret of the prolific geeks is that SSH you can use for almost anything. You can tunnel out of firewalls, you can tunnel back into firewalls and stuff like that. The reason why sysadmins never let you go through the firewall is because they can all go through it using SSH, and so they're laughing. And mail wrangling. Mail wrangling is a huge thing that people do. People do things for searching, primarily, and pulling stuff up and giving you status about what kind of mail you are, and filtering, of course. Okay, these are slightly stranger ones. How are we doing? Oh, we're doing all right. Sync. Everyone had a really complicated synchronizing app, something that would take files and mirror them somewhere else. I remember that Corey's one had stuff like, you have stuff that syncs with like your backup that you have and your iPod and what else?
Remote server and my backup hard drive and my spare power mode.
Right, so this is, the other big lesson of this is that all of these people had learned to do backups due to some catastrophic and nightmarish thing. Like, I asked specifically about the backups, and it was the most emotional question. I was like, I thought it would be one of the techie geeky ones, and like some of them are more like hippie shit. And I was like, how do you feel about being organized? But this one was the one where people said, I lost everything. So syncing is part of this. And the other thing is that syncing is increasingly important if people live on lots of different servers. And syncing is complex and personal. People didn't trust existing sync apps to do this. People often wrote their own things to do this, basically around rsync, which is a generalized Unix utility, but they didn't trust iSync and they didn't trust like downloadable Windows syncing programs. They wrote their own because there were personal rules. You know, you wanted this file overwritten by this, but you didn't want it the other way around. So this was a tricky thing that really demanded custom code. And again, trust. They just didn't trust the software that they had. And syncing is hard, and you know, I think everyone had gone through an instant of syncing screwing up, and you know, oh, I've synced everything with your empty directory. Everything is now empty. Congratulations. Boilerplate. One of the slightly annoying things before I gave this talk tonight is I was up late last night reading The Pragmatic Programmer, which is a great book. And the Pragmatic Programmer talks about boilerplate and code, and actually touches on a lot of these other topics. And this is stuff this is the simplest kind of thing. This is what I saw people generally doing. You know, Piers had like script templates that he'd use for LA scripts and stuff like that. This is the first step on this, and it's a useful organizing thing that if you have to write a form letter all the time, dear loser, I'm Jamie Zawinski. Believe me, I know how to write X matrix string service. You know, you could, if you just take some time to like abstract that out of your system, it speeds things up. Mungers and viewers. Okay, this is another screenshot time. There are a lot of really interesting ways of viewing existing code. Where's the little preview box? Oh, this is okay. There were a lot of people. A good example: Ward Cunningham. Ward Cunningham, who is the guy that Ken Beck thought was the genius programmer that taught him all his good habits. Ward Cunningham has a program which shows activity, basically goes through his filing system and finds, counts the number of files that were changed on a certain date. And basically this gives him a completely new view of his filing system, clustered by activity, which means that he can quickly find files that are associated with one another and can quickly see what he's been doing in projects. So, I mean, the reason why I'm going through all of these things is I think these are apps that the rest of the world could really do with. And different ways of viewing simple underlying systems are a really good thing. Okay, so this is a great app which is available on KDE. This is, I wish I could show you it kind of as it works, but I'm using this proprietary operating system. And I can't install X on it, I'm sorry. This is called FileLight, and I can try and explain it, but it actually moves as you use it. And what these blocks are files determined by size. And the further down you go, the further down your directory structure you go. Further out you go. So what you see here is these very big files here are things which are very low down in your directory structure that you had no idea were there, that are actually taking up all your disk space. So this is a utility for finding out what's taking up all of your disk space. I freed 200 megabytes, I think, from it. No, actually about close to half a gig, because I found, like, hidden away in one of my mailbox folders the day that a worm went completely crazy and completely saturated my inbox. And I didn't know because it just got filtered away and it just been sitting there squatting balefully. A bit like that bit at the end of Jack Black. There we go. So these are the sort of apps they're writing, not necessarily as graphical or interesting as that, but certainly ways that we're not used to seeing the stuff that we're usually presented with. And again, something that people did a lot with this is mail. Not much cross-app automation. For those of you who for that isn't self-explanatory, this is the big dream people had of writing scripts for general users. The big idea that Apple had was that eventually it wouldn't just be power geeks writing these scripts, it would be everyone, and they would use AppleScript. And they would say, pick up my mail and turn it into a GIF and then upload it to my website or whatever. This idea that you could talk to Photoshop and you could automate Photoshop and you could get Photoshop to talk to something else. So in my futzing around here, what it should have done, of course, is written a special app, a special way of talking to the preview program, which would very carefully pick up my files and sort them in the right order and then present them in the same way. And then I would connect that to PowerPoint, and PowerPoint would talk to that, so I just have to press a button. This is the great dream of bringing programming to the masses. Not only has that not happened, the geeks who write these scripts don't even do this. All of these things are exposed. You can do this on certainly on the Mac with AppleScript, but they didn't do it. And I think this is really revealing, and this is kind of addressed to the particularly geeky here, because I think these things are demonstrably brittle. This is the same as having remote objects. You just cannot bring these applications to talk. And people feel that there's limitations to the piping structure of Unix, which has this very simple version of this, that you can pick up things like this. And it turns out that may actually be the limit of it. That if you try and do anything more complicated than that, things just crack. Things just break around the edges. A big test of this is going to be Longhorn, because Longhorn actually has a rather decent shell in it. And one of the things this shell has is an object-oriented interface between these applications. So you can basically pipe objects from application to application. It's going to be interesting because that's either much better than Unix, which will annoy all the Unix geeks immensely, and they were already getting annoyed at emerging tech. I had to throw in an anti-Windows joke at this point because they were going, I don't think that's going to be very good. I annoyed Robert Scoble. But it'll be a really interesting test about whether that's true and whether that's just going to be disregarded by geeks and the normal people, the controls. Again, web scraping, loads of web scraping. People writing apps to download their accounts so they never have to remember their accounts again. People doing stuff that things that didn't have RSS feeds, they wrote things that generated those RSS feeds. A lot of this incredibly, talk about brittle. These were things that pulling stuff off websites and then writing them into programs is a very brittle behavior because people are always redesigning their websites. But it was worth the sacrifice. People really did write a lot of this stuff, and it's the sort of thing that sits in my directory as well. Stuff that you want to be automated. You want something to go into your bank account and download what's going on and graph it, because your bank is never going to tell you to do that thing. And finally, a lot of making public. A lot of the syncing stuff is making public. A lot, frankly, of the RSS feed stuff is making public. A lot of the interoperable application apps. So there's a general rule of we write these things to upload them to web servers, show them to other people, tidy things up. A lot of this most secret software was actually there to make public software or public things for viewing. One of the reasons for that was self-selection, as I said. I was deliberately picking people who were very prolific in public. But I think actually that's the basic organizing trick under all of this. This is something that was so good I straight copied and pasted. I think it's rot if you don't do something with them. I used to think it would be dumb to give my ideas away, that I should hoard them up for that great art. It's like your mother turning up. Right? If you know you're going to make something public, you go, yeah, I really should clean this up, I really should tidy this up. And a lot of more time, I think. We have 5 more minutes? Okay. So I'm open to questions about this. I have to keep the actual details of what these people said. I know it sounds very like a NTK gossiporama at this point. I can just find out Eric Raymond's GPG key or something. But I did swear like individual answers to privacy. I have got some interesting other stuff that didn't really fit in. Let me just do this one because I think it's really interesting. This is a slide from my original talk in February. And this was the stuff that I thought would be killer apps. If you really wanted to write something that was exploit all of this, these are the things that you should write. And I can actually tick 2 of these things off now. Decent email search, bastards at Google. This is what everyone's using Google Mail for, well, you know, the select hoi polloi. That's what they're doing. They dump all their email there, and they Google their email. It's a kind of creepy solution, because the idea of handing off not only your personal information, but the personal information of people who send things to you is kind of odd, but it's another one of those weird sacrifices. That in the same way as Orkut and Friendster were instantly filled, I noticed, with cypherpunks who argued endlessly about anonymity and preserving like traffic networks. They go, no, well, we must never give away our keys because people will instantly know who my friends are. Oh, my friends are so-and-so, I know, Osama bin Laden, I'm great friends with Phil Zimmerman. Oh yes, just round these people up. In the same way, lots of people who would otherwise, I think, be quite dodgy about the idea of handing their friends' information to Google, were very tempted, given that the trade-off was being able to search email. And searching email is just this problem that, like, who wants their email to have better search? Right. So if you do that, you will be king. And if you do it and you don't demand that they put it on your server, that would help. Easy web scraping. This I found out today. Someone has written like the next bit of the puzzle in the easy web scraping thing. What I want is an app that gives you a page, lets you select stuff, a program that converts that into an RSS feed, and then the next day when that breaks, because obviously you can't really learn how to make an RSS feed from one example, it will learn. So you go back to the page and you select it and say, no, these pages. And eventually it will learn what that is. And I think that I used to write a column for the Sunday Times, and the Sunday Times audience were not very technical. And I often felt, no one really cares about me. And the 2 biggest replies I got from articles were, one, talking about how I ran a server at home. And everyone wanted to do that. I said, I can read my email anywhere I want, and I can go into my computer and I can download my MP3s or whatever I have at home. Everybody emailed in saying, how do I do that? And I'm sitting there going, oh, install Linux, or VNC or something like that. And there needs to be an easy way of doing that. And the other one is this. I wrote an article about how I was stuck in an airport, and I wrote a script to constantly hit their servers and find out when the planes were being cancelled, because I was in a snowstorm. And everyone wrote in going, this would be fantastic for X, where X was everything from like spiking eBay auctions to just tracking hospitals or something like that, hospital appointments. So easy web scraping app would make $1 million. Keyboard macros, Windows, Linux, maybe what? Right. Oh, did I say that at the beginning? Didn't I? No. Well, who did it? Who does it?
A bunch of Taiwanese hackers called Alexa have got a web service that does it.
Yes. Oh, it's a web server. Is this RSifier or
No,
MyRSS?
This is one of their weird Chinese things. I don't know.
Can you send me the URL and I'll do it. Done in Taiwan. Sorry, everyone. You won't make $1 million. Taiwan beta. Keyboard macros, Windows, Linux. Really weird. Like lots of people have really good keyboard macros. They're kind of good keyboard macros apps for Windows, but there really aren't any for Linux. And I don't think you'd make as much money for that. And FilePal for everyone. After I did this slide, I got beaten up by the FilePal people for talking about FilePal, which you're not supposed to do. FilePal, suppose hypothetically there was a site that let you share pictures and things like this, so with your friends. And this is kind of being done as well. And I mean, I've covered this a bit in NTK, but there's a big movement now for this idea that you have a folder on your desktop that you drag files to, and those files are synchronized, because synchrony is the other big thing at the core of this. This would be a program that would just do that. It wouldn't be file sharing so much as just sharing something on your folder, on your screen. And I think that's a really important app, because I think that is the thing that will lead to people putting more things in public. You know, the great thing about blogging, and the great thing about these, is edging people into the idea that some of their life, some of their information life should be public. And I think this is what something like this does. That's pretty much it. Oh, these are recommended books, to which I add Pragmatic Programmer. Kent Beck, Test-Driven Development, is a really good way of looking at like your own habits. Getting Things Done, which is now getting some real purchase. This was something that I mentioned in February, and now he has his own blog, and everyone swears by it. Really good flowchart for getting organised. Bit kind of businessy, bit kind of like, you can take out the world. But you know, that's what self-help books are like. Home Comforts, similarly, done by the even more obsessive compulsive Martha Stewart. But great for geeks. Spends 20 pages explaining how to wash dishes. So I really recommend that. That's for the autistic in your family. It's a great book, and I swear by it. And that's it. So questions, very quickly, because yeah, we've got a minute or so.
Yeah, in terms of web scraping, what I want is I want to be able to get receive shared. I don't know what you call it. A web scrape template when you've gone in there and analysed the page, and then you then publish that.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Once you've done it, you should be able to like have it just sent to everyone else. Yeah. No, and that's the other thing. The weird thing is, if you Google for things that you don't think have RSS templates, they'll often have RSS templates hidden away in people's directories that they've done exactly that. They've written their own web scraping software. BitTorrent sites, oddly, very popular for that.
Down here in the corner.
Are there any more questions?
Yes, over here. Everything you covered has sort of been fairly asynchronous, sort of email, publishing. There's a lag between that. Are we to conclude that prolific people don't use IRC, or?
That's a really, really good question. Sorry, which I will now keep quiet. But basically, the question was this: that these things were very asynchronous. They were very, you upload something, you send out an email a bit later. Do organized prolific people use IRC? And or is it quite the opposite? Is IRC the anti-organizing prolific agent? And I really want to look into that. One of the things I do think is true is that IRC has a different quality to IM and things like that. People often have IRC running in the background, so it's not interrupt-driven. It's not kind of going beep, hey-oh, and then you have to reply to it. IRC, even though it looks like a complete waste of time, is often ticking away. And it's another great example of something that people use and then apply in their institutions. A lot of companies have all their sysadmins in IRC. One of my great revelations in the early days of NTK is finding the IRC channel that secretly ran the British internet. The British internet in 1998 went down for a bit, and people went, we've just got to go on IRC. And I'm going, don't go on IRC, like the whole backbone's collapsing. Well, that's where we're sorting it out. That's where me and the other 15-year-olds are fixing it. True. So yeah, that's a really interesting point. Anybody else? What does it do? Why? Yeah. So what it's to do is an app that I wrote, which actually follows these principles a bit. It's a text file that synchronizes with your Palm and converts the text into the to-do list, and vice versa. So you tick things off, and it deletes them from your text to-do list. So it has syncing, and it has text file, and it has very simple format. Actually, the main reason I stopped using it is because my Palm broke a bit, and you know, I'm just not a good example of these. One of the tragedies of this is I genuinely am one of the least organised people in the world. As you can tell, if you go to lifehacks.com, which at the end of this talk in February, I was going, yes, we're up pretty soon now. And I'm actually going, there is stuff at Lifehacks now, not much, just my empty promises. But I'm probably going to do that after I've done the next version of this talk, which is next week. And then I won't feel so bad about putting everything up in public that I've just told you, because I'm just scared of boring people. And lazy. But the reason for what I do is actually these days I'm having to try out all of this shit. So currently I'm using a Vim outliner, and that seems to work with the getting things done structure. And that seems to be good. And I'm going to try and write some little utilities to give the idea for Lifehacks. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Deacon McDonald. It's sort of a comment and a question. I'm interested in all these high-powered programs using text editors for to-do management. I think at one level you could say, well, you know, we're being very unambitious about how we use software, or how we develop software. On the other hand, you could say, well, we're being ambitious in the sense we're creating tools for people to create tools with, which you've talked about quite eloquently. And you know, I wonder what, you know, which end of the spectrum we're really at. Are we serious about what we're doing, or are we just playing around? And if we are developing tools, or other people develop tools, how do we create them in a way which they are adaptable to people's needs? And there's a thesis in the area of design called adaptive design, which is quite popular these days, that you know, really we need to design things for adaptation, not for fixed uses. I'm not sure, I don't think you can answer that question now, but designing for adaptation when you don't know what people are going to do with it is a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely true. And I mean, I think one of the things here is that these apps are adaptable. They turned out to be adaptable, but they were never designed to be this adaptable. And you know, you're basically talking about the evolution of the market of these applications rather than someone specifically trying to do it. There is an idea that this, and this is why I was trying to discriminate between Zawinski complete and Turing complete. There is a strong temptation, and a lot of this stuff is to do with the instincts of geeks. The reason why geeks don't have regular habits, and everybody I talked to said, I have a really good memory for abstract ideas, but I don't remember my wife's anniversary or my spouse's anniversary, or you know, to pay bills and stuff like that. And one of the reasons for that is that it's a very strong instinct amongst geeks to not duplicate activity. Hopefully I'm going to write about this a little bit more in detail, but the idea is that you know, if you have to do something twice, a computer should do it, right? You shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to go to the shops again. I went last week, right? There's a for next loop in there somewhere, and I'm going to put it out. And so that's one of the instincts. The other instinct, I think, is this idea of making everything able to hold the kitchen sink. That every program eventually includes email and stuff like that. And I don't think that's the same as what you're talking about, because that's a temptation when people want to write something that is a big app tool for writing tools. They make it Turing complete, because that's the idea that it can run any sort of program. And what it actually needs is a sort of special kind of simplicity, which I think Ward Cunningham is very good at pointing out, picking out. The wiki is a really good example of an adaptable piece of software, because it's very simple and doesn't impose policy on people. And that's actually a better solution. You give this, rather than giving a lot of options and stuff like that, you actually just give people literally a blank template.
The web philosophy as well.
Yeah, and I think that's no coincidence. So I better stop.
There's some zombies coming.
Right. Do you want any announcements or anything? Thank you.